You're listening to Wisdom of the Ages, the show that taps into the many expressions of universal, ancestral, and personal wisdom to ignite evolutionary consciousness.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Ages podcast show. I have a very special treat for you today in which we will discuss how the wisdom behind diversity lives with us today. And this is going to be with my good friend, Peggy O'Neill. So let me tell you why you're going to be excited about this episode and why Peggy is awesome. But first, I'd like to begin with a wisdom quote by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And speaking of the light, I would like to introduce my guest. Peggy O'Neill is an inspirational speaker, corporate trainer, and author. Over the past 15 years, she has shared her story of overcoming the challenges of being a little person to inspire others to open their minds and hearts to differences. She also educates women and people in minorities to find their voice, speak up, and walk tall. From the soaring height of 3 feet, 8 inches tall, Peggy has triumphed over a mountain range of challenges. Coming from the field of psychotherapy, Peggy draws from the wisdom of her unique life experiences and lifelong training in the areas of empowerment and diversity. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the wisdom of diversity. So Peggy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So nice to be here with you.
This is going to be fun. So I know you're a professional speaker, so you'll be good at this. Can you tell us more about that?
I hope so. Okay. Yeah. So I sort of have the gift of gab, and speaking is my gift. And so I am making my livelihood and my career through inspiring and motivating and teaching people how to open their minds and hearts to differences and all the things you said. Empower them, help them open their hearts, open their minds, up level their ability to be kind. And I've spoken to lots of Fortune 500 companies. I've spoken to over 100,000 kids in schools, in anti-bullying practices and building self-esteem. And my life is a total joy.
Wow. You don't hear that all the time. My life is a total joy. I love it. I absolutely love that.
Except when I get except when I have an emotional train crash.
That's probably true for all of us. But
yeah, that happens once in a while. I'm not going to say that it doesn't.
Well, I know you've had a lot of challenges, especially, 3 foot 8 inches tall. That's got to be a challenge right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm sure you've been labeled as different. And so just, can you tell us why diversity is important to you?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of challenges that go with diversity. And one of them is the obvious, not being able to reach things. Another one is people staring at you because your body looks significantly different than others. And I think the biggest challenge is when people have judgments towards me and they have preconceived notions that something, because I'm different, because my body is significantly different, I'm like way on the left side of the bell curve. Little people are a phenomenon of 1 in 50,000. Ooh. And yeah, so it's not very often that, oftentimes when I meet somebody, I say, have you ever even talked to a little person before? And they say, I've seen a little person, but I've never talked to a little person. So that's pretty amazing, right? So because of that severe difference, people are a little bit maybe shocked or surprised when they see me. And if they don't have what I would call more enlightened or open framed mindset, they go to that person's different, and unconsciously they go to, I'm afraid, I have to protect myself, I'm going to create separation. And usually they do that by considering themselves superior and me inferior. So I would say that's the number one biggest obstacle. And the reason that diversity is so important to me is that for a long time in my life, I tried to, for the first pretty much half of my life, I tried to sort of pretend that I was just like everybody else. And it didn't really lead to, it led to a lot of just, that was a total train wreck, sorry. It was a total train wreck. My relationships were terrible. My ability to get through obstacles was awful. And I just wasn't seeing things objectively. I had lots of disappointment because I expected things that were out of the realm of taking into consideration that I was so different. So diversity has become so important to me because as I started to come on board with the fact that I am different and be with that difficulty of the differences, that the blessings of the differences has also started to show up. And one of the blessings of the differences is my own uniqueness and my superpowers. And now I really just try to put my attention on those and shine them and leverage them for all around success in my life. And another reason that it's important to me is because it's led me to a deeper appreciation of differences in general. And that has led me to a deeper understanding and experience of what unifies all diversity, sort of that transcendental state, which is the basis of what everything, all the diversity comes out of. So not only do I have more appreciation of all the differences in life, emotionally, physically, nature, all the people, ideas, points of view, all of that, emotions, but I also have a deeper connection with my own inner true nature, which is a state which everyone has inside of them. So I feel connected to all of life.
My goodness. When I listen to you, I have to say that my heart just, it really just blows right wide open. I can't really imagine what it would be like to,
yeah, you can't,
it's not one in, did you say 1 in 50,000 people?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. That is, so you're definitely qualified to talk about diversity. Oh, yeah. Goodness. And you walk tall. I mean, you're not bitter. You're walking tall. I love it.
Thank you. Well, you might mention that's the title of one of my books. That's why you're saying.
That is the title of one of your books that I love. The first book that I ran across that you had written that I still really love and I have on my bookshelf is a children's book, and it's called Little Squarehead. But before you tell us about that, and I know that you're going to tell us some more about maybe some unity consciousness and how you find superpowers, maybe inner power, and share some practices with us and some other exciting things. But we're going to have to take a break. So where can we find out more about you, the listeners? Where can they go to?
They can go to peggyspeaks.com. And it's just how it sounds, Pegggy speaks.com. And on there you can see my programs that I give in organizations, corporations. You can see my books. You can see a bunch of articles that I've written and all kinds of other fun stuff, assessments for your company to see how you're doing diversity-wise, and more fun.
Okay. So actually, I've been on your website. It's incredible. I definitely encourage people to go look to find out all kinds of things. Okay, so when we come back from this short break, we're going to talk about the wisdom of diversity. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
So we're back, and you're listening to the Wisdom of the Ages podcast with Superpower Up host Ayn Cates Sullivan. So you can find out more about the show on wisdomoftheages.superpowerexperts.com. And today we're talking with brilliant, even awesome guest, Peggy O'Neill. So welcome back.
Thank you. I'm still here.
You're still here. Very good.
I'm still here with all my superpowers.
Yay! Well, I read your book, showcasing superpowers. So okay. So I'm curious, what's inner power?
Yes. So there's superpowers and there's inner powers, right? So your superpowers are the things that you're really good at, you're better at than most people, you love to do, you leverage them and you get successful, right? Yeah. And your inner power is an innate quality that you have and everyone has that we can tap into, that allows us to be strong, that allows us to be clear, that allows us to be autonomous, that allows us to get through obstacles. And we can access that inner power through certain practices of sort of going within and also dealing with some emotional power, some emotional past experiences, especially experiences that make us feel angry and disappointed and even frustrated that we have submerged and told ourselves, I'm not a good girl or I'm not a good boy if I let myself feel those feelings. So, I mean, that's a whole talk in itself. So I'll just leave it at that and say that we can access the inner power that makes us be able to sort of, it's like a phoenix rising is the sense I get right now. It's like it allows you to rise up out of your challenges and overcome them. And it allows you to be have that force that moves you forward into your life and makes your dreams come true.
That's amazing. You know, sometime I'd love to do a show just on showcasing your superpowers, because you've got seven steps, I believe, 7 steps to.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that would be really cool, and it would be a great topic for the show because it's called superpowers.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so we'll come back to that, but I look forward to that. Okay. So just tell it, what are you doing in the world now? How are you using these superpowers that you found?
Well, I am basically, I think of myself as a candle that ignites sparklers of other beings with inner power and inner clarity and inner brilliancy and inner kindness, and that my words will support people in gaining the awareness and developing the skills and behaviors that will evolve them to be more in celebration of diversity and more attuned to the unity.
So, I mean, this unity consciousness it seems like a really, really important question. And but before we get to unity consciousness, because I think we should get there, tell us something about how the challenge of being a small person has impacted your sense of self, so your self-expression in life. Okay.
So I usually think of my life in 2 different sections. There's sort of before I had an awakening, and there was after that. So awakening means awakening to my true nature, and I'll probably tell you a story about that in this particular part. But in my first part of my life, as I said, the most difficult thing was people projecting onto me that something was wrong with me. And it is really hard to walk through life when people are doing that to you. And, you know, I mean, kids would show up and call me midget, and yell at me and tease at me and a little bit push me around, but not too much pushing. I was around pretty nice kids, but they did use verbal abuse, and it was very demeaning. And then when I got to be a teenager, I was completely excluded from dating. So there was sort of dating prejudice, and that happened through pretty much, I mean, still happening. So I was married for a period of time, and I've been single for 7.5 years, and I still experience that. And that is very hard. It's very hard to experience an emotional connection with someone and then have them say, I want to be your best friend. I want you to be my best friend, but nothing more. And I mean, and then it happens over and over and over. So that's like a huge thing. So when I was younger, all of that just, it pushed on me, and it pushed me down and pushed me down and pushed me down. And what I call my inner size, my inner smallness, got bigger and bigger, and I got smaller and smaller. And I lost my voice. I lost my conviction. I lost my capacity to say no or stop. I had an experience of the dean at my photography college. I went to Art Center, which is like this hugely difficult school to get into, to stay in. I'm dealing with professional photography equipment. I've got all these big cameras, lights, stands, everything huge, even hard for a 6-foot-tall guy, and I'm doing it. And I'm making it through to the 8th semester of the school, having to keep a B+ average. And the dean calls me into his office and says, nobody's going to hire you because you're a little person. So imagine that. So
it is horrible.
Yeah.
Actually,
here I am at the crest of making my transition to launch my career. And this is the message that I get from my authority figure. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, his inner smallness is beyond belief, right?
Exactly. It was his projection. I have to say, he must have been a really, really small guy and is probably not walking tall.
Exactly. So anyway, I crashed and burned. I moved to Hawaii. I dropped out. I didn't use my photography career. My photography, I was groomed to be a New York, like magazine photographer. And I didn't, and many of my friends went on to do that. And are still doing that. And I crashed and burned, moved to Hawaii, dropped out. And then after a while, I started having some experiences that started shifting my awareness about who I am. And I mean, you want me to share one of those stories now?
Oh, please. I'd love to hear one. Okay.
So one of the main things, I joined an organization called the Diamond Approach, or Diamond Heart, and it's a spiritual psychological school headed up by Hamid Ali. And I was involved in the school for a while. I was suicidal at that point. I was, the whole thing with the dean and then my relational life. I was in my mid-30s and my life wasn't unfolding. All my friends were having careers and kids and families. And, I was just sort of like going, what? This is so not fair. I do not want to be here anymore. And so in the midst of that, I knew I needed help, and I got help from this particular source of knowledge. And one day I was in a class and we were given some pillows and we're doing some rigorous unstressing called punching pillows. It was like a normal Friday night, yelling, I hate you, and punching pillows. And after a while I got really tired, so I lay back on my pillows to rest. And when I closed my eyes, I saw something in my heart that changed my life. And when it was a diamond. And the diamond was bigger than my entire body. I mean, you can see it and feel it right now. So, and it was so beautiful, and light was shining out in every direction. And in that moment, I knew that it wasn't true that something was wrong with me. I knew that I was as valuable and as precious as a huge, ginormous, shining diamond.
And that's beautiful, Peggy. Yeah. That's absolutely incredibly beautiful. I mean, how many people get to have the experience of shifting into sort of hatred? First of all, most people are frightened to even experience anger or rage or hatred or any of these emotions, and you somehow had the courage to go into a therapeutic situation, not acting out in the world, but in a therapeutic situation. Explore that and find out that this is actually what it took for you to find the truth of who you are, which is an eternal, beautiful diamond. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was really a transformational moment and a cornerstone of my life, because from then on, I no longer identified fully with something's wrong with me. And over the last, I had that experience maybe, it was 20, 25 years ago, something like that. And in the interim there, it's been a process of stabilizing integrating and stabilizing. And what I mean by like integrating, it means I go back out into the world and the kids yell at me and the kids in the grocery store point and laugh at me. And the person that I want to get hired from says, no, I think I'll, talk to this other person. And, or people just walk away from me, or people pat me on the head, or all kinds of stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. Or I develop a friendship with a guy, and they're single and available, and they don't pursue the relationship. Like, all that happens still. So,
right.
Like, no matter how, this is the thing about my life, is no matter how enlightened I become, I still have to remember the truth of who I am every moment. Because if I don't, I'm just going to squash back down into that, a puddle, and be splat on the ground. Like, I can't do anything. Mm-hmm. So the more I can stay in touch with my true nature, with that sense of my inner value, my inner power, my inner brilliancy, all of that, the more I'm able to walk tall through my life, and actually really walk tall. Like, I really have that sense of inner confidence and inner courage and inner capacity to be in the world and function.
Well, basically, if you have been able to do that, that means everybody can do it.
I hope so.
Because when you were speaking, you were saying that something's wrong with me. I mean, people can be, from any walk of life, any gender, anywhere, and think something's wrong with me. And I'm assuming if we're running that broken recording, we're actually just at that moment identified more with our ego. Would you say?
Well, completely, because the ego is the foundation of the ego is I'm not enough. Mm-hmm. And it's constant prayer, and its constant ambition is to be enough. So it efforts and it pleases and it protects and it does all this stuff, and it exhausts itself. Mm-hmm. And it's just I always think of a hamster on the wheel. That's the ego. And there's no way to either become good enough or get lasting satisfaction when you're functioning from that part of yourself. And so one of the things that I feel that I've been blessed with is to understand that egoic development is part of the maturation of the human being, and we can go beyond it. Just through growing up inside of ourselves, by facing our deepest fears, by dealing with our difficult experiences in life and learning from them, it dissolves the boundaries of the ego structure, and we begin to show up as wholeness, as our innate that brilliancy of our true nature. And there's many, the whole myth of, I know in the whole the chase for the grail and the heroine's journey and the hero's journey is all about finding that treasure, and ultimately the treasure is within us, and it's buried and it's hard to find, but if you go through the process you can find it. And then this whole other quality of life, it's not a whole different life, it's a quality of life that shows up. Still may have the same people and the same job and the same sensations in your body, but there's this whole experience that you have being connected, and everything's alive, and you're curious, and you're in awe, and everything's like there's a certain amount of wonder in everything and curiosity, even when you experience not getting what you want and you're suffering.
Yeah. So suffering, I think I remember a quote from Buddha that was the life of the ego is, or the life is suffering, or the life of the ego is suffering.
Totally.
Yeah. But would you say that the ego is a mistake?
No, I was just trying to explain that. I think that it's like how you crawl before you walk, walk before you run. Mm-hmm. You're born and you're in like a unity experience. There's no differentiation. Then you become an individual self, and then that it dissolves, and you become one. You're separate, but you're one. You're both, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a process. I think of it as a process of maturation, just like going from walking to running.
So you're basically becoming sort of precious pearl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's incredible if you think about it. Like this ego, it's not a mistake, and these terrible things can happen to us in our life. People can see us in a way that's really not a reflection of our divine self, not a reflection of our true nature and who we are. And somehow in that brokenness, we can still have these like satori experiences, these precious moments when all of a sudden we see the diamond. We actually see the diamond, and we understand something about our true nature. And I think that's really exciting. And so can you tell me just a little bit about, so we understand what the ego is. That's like suffering and limitation and contraction and brokenness and all these things. Well, what's true nature?
Okay, so true nature is, it's actually the part of ourself that is who we really are. And I know that doesn't really explain it, but it's like we have capacities, and when we're in touch with our true nature, it's almost like true nature is, I hadn't really prepared for this question. I'm trying to answer it.
I'm throwing one at you.
Okay. It's a hard one to answer. So true nature is like this infinite ocean that is underneath us, that supports us and nourishes us. And when our ego structures have been dissolved, we have access to that ocean, and then whatever is needed in the moment arises. And if it's clarity, if it's humor, if it's empathy, if it's kindness, if it's let's get the hell out of here, if it's some kind of creative idea, those things will arise just spontaneously in the moment, and there's no barrier to that. And it doesn't come through efforting, it doesn't come through pushing ourselves, it doesn't come through affirmation. It just arises very naturally, and it comes out in a very beautiful and I want to say copacetic. I don't even know what that word means. It comes out in a beautiful way. It gets expressed in a beautiful way, and it's very. It can be received. I think when we're behaving from our true nature, we're received much differently in the world because people experience our authenticity, and there isn't some kind of push-pull going on inside of us. And we're not trying to manipulate the others to like give us certain kind of narcissistic supplies and say how great we are. Oh, you're so creative, or oh, poor you, or any of that.
It feels like an infinite ocean of wisdom somehow.
Yes. Yes.
So we are that, and yet we also can experience ourselves as an individual as well.
Yes, and it goes so far beyond the intellect when we say the word wisdom. It is not just intellectual understanding. It's almost like cosmic wisdom that somehow, just answering that question, I called on that capacity. Like I didn't know what to say. I was like, okay, go into yourself and see what happens. And so then that answer came. So it's wisdom that is beyond the things that you've learned in the past.
I love it. So have you had an experience of unity consciousness?
I did, and I was very fortunate, and I would say I had a startling experience when I was 17 years old, and in the last couple of years I'm having that experience is resonating with me. It's not in the same way as it was, but my experience when I was 17 was on drugs, and I had an experience of I was with some friends, and they went to sleep and I didn't, and I had my first meditation, and the bed, the chair, the floor, the TV, my friends, I could perceive with my eyes, with my body. I felt it, I saw it. I could see the underlying unity. It was like I could still see the diversity, the colors, the shapes, all that. But what was more significant was the underneath experience. And I'd had that experience in a strong way a few times since then. And I'd say now I'm in the place, and I'm just going to go back and say what happened in that experience is that I was given the information that this experience of unity is the normal, natural experience for the fullest potential of the human mind and the human consciousness. And you can attain this in your lifetime if you focus and stay on the path.
So did you just say that anyone, like all the listeners everyone can attain unity consciousness?
I did say that, and that's what I was told. And I know a lot of people who are making their way in that direction, and they're showing up that way more and more every day. It isn't something just for a guru in the cave or a Kabbalah master who's spent his entire life with a book in the Bible. It's for everybody.
Mm. I mean, is this the shift? Is this what's going to happen, do you think, in the future, that somehow we're going to collectively start shifting towards unity consciousness?
If we can survive.
Or maybe we have to shift into unity consciousness so that we do survive.
Well, I think that that's exactly what's needed. And I think that's exactly why in corporations, I always say to people that we talk about diversity and inclusion and empathy in these things because people, their needs are rising on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're not on the level of survival anymore, and sometimes not even on the level of safety, although safety is an issue at work. But really, they want to get support for their self-esteem. They really want to know that they belong. And some people even want to get support for their self-actualization at work. So the needs of people, their consciousness is rising. And that's why the leaders in business need to shift into a place where they're showing up that support those people getting those needs met. They want to be appreciated. They want to have their foibles seen with some kind of compassion. They want for people to be able to sit with them when they're having a hard time. They want for people to celebrate them when they do a really great job. Yeah.
Well, can you tell me who has had the biggest impact in supporting your transformation? Have you had some specific mentors? You mentioned the Ridwan School.
Yeah, I would say that would be number one. And the Ridwan or Diamond Approach, which is at diamondapproach.org, that Hamid and his teachers. I've been in that school. I started back in 1990, and I dropped out for about 10 years and did a Sufi path, and then I came back to the Diamond Heart in 2012. But it has provided me with a continual capacity to develop my skills at residing, abiding, and embodying my true nature and expressing that in the world. And other forms of, I'm an eclectic reader. I go to a lot of workshops. I listen to what a lot of teachers are saying. And I always say, Hamid is my teacher. And this is the path where I draw my, it's like where my roots go in, right? And another person that was very influential in my development was Anna Halprin, who is a 100-year-old woman who overcame cancer when she was 60 years old. And she's been she does something called the life art process, and she teaches people to express their true nature through movement and art and the arts. And when I went to see her, I was completely under the mystique that I'm an average sized person. So when I started being on the floor doing yoga in a room with a bunch of other people, I was in despair. I was like, oh my God, I can't do that pose. My arm looks weird. I can't do that. I can't bend that way. I can't get that foot over my neck. I mean, I was just like devastated. And, then she'd have us dance shoulder to shoulder or back to back. And of course, people had to accommodate me. And every time they did, I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought, I'm bad because I have this difference. And it was that her holding me in the light of your difference is okay. Your difference is safe here. You can thrive and be in your own difference here. We respect that. She was the first person in my life that actually ever gave me that message. And that was extremely transformational for me.
I love that. Your difference is safe here.
Yeah.
Because really, I would hope that every single person on the planet is unique. I mean, we're all snowflakes. We're all different. Some people might be obviously more different than others, but there's no repeat of you. There's no repeat of me. I mean, it seems to me like we should be celebrating our differences, really celebrating diversity.
Well, that's really the gift. And you asked me the first question, like, what's the gift of diversity or why it's so important to me? And that's really the answer, is that it has allowed me to celebrate my uniqueness. So
I was just thinking about something. So I've done some courses with the Diamond Approach and the Ridwan School, and with Hamid Ali, who is actually, people look him up. His name publicly appears as A.H. Almas, and he's written extraordinary books. Pearl Beyond Price, which is why we were speaking about the Pearl a minute ago.
Essence.
Yes, Holy Ideas, and
Facets of Unity.
Space Cruiser Inquiry.
Yeah, all of them.
And I think maybe my favorite is Luminous Night's Journey, which is about his awakening experience. And it was just really touched me. In fact, I keep that book by my bed and read it over and over again when I wonder what's happening. So one thing that's interesting about I mean, so it's okay. He's very accepting. That's one thing I really love about him. He's like, "Oh, what's arising now?" You know, everything is.
He also is so beautiful to model that difficulties are to be celebrated because they open the door to greater understanding and further enlightenment and awakening.
Now, when I met Hamid in person for the first time, I was surprised to find out that he was crippled, that he had polio, and that he really can't walk. So he's also different.
Yes.
And somehow, I mean, I don't know if sometimes if there's a challenge like that, if it forces you in some way to maybe really embrace a spiritual path. I mean, I guess the other option would be that some sort of, well, not evolution, but the opposite, you know, where you would spin into some sort of bitterness or suffering. But instead, you know, maybe for Hamid, for instance, it encouraged him to seek these other worlds, these other dimensions that are as real, if not more real, than the world the apparent world we're in right now.
Well, I would imagine he himself had some sort of gift in having a spiritual or some sort of illumination or awakening experience that allowed him to peek into the world of true nature and unbounded being, that encouraged him to then find a process that would help him peel the layers of the onion, like what I was talking about, and just keep going and going and evolving and letting his ego structure dissolve. And I don't really know, he doesn't really talk about his personal life very much. He doesn't ever really talk about his how his self-identity formed around his polio-ness. I've never heard him talk about that, so it's kind of a mystery. I
guess it is a mystery. I do remember the story that he was hit by a car, and that. Yeah,
but that was before. I think that was before.
Yeah, interesting. This is interesting, though.
That was when he had his awakening. He was hit and had an illuminating experience. He sort of had I think he had a near-death experience. I don't think he did. He had a near-death experience, and he had some awareness come to him that was something that he had never known before. And he was studying to become a physicist, and he became more interested in the nature of being than in the nature of things. And that's how that happened.
So these mentors are around us. You know, we can reach out to them and find these people, including Peggy O'Neill, who are incredibly helpful to us. I mean, and I'm hoping that people listening to the show will remember that. If you're stuck in some way, if you're feeling like you're different or you're broken or something's going on with you that's difficult, there are books, there are courses, there are all sorts of ways that you can find out. You know, sometimes the light comes through the broken places, so that's exactly where we want to look. And they are like you had described, you find your inner light, you find your diamond.
Yeah, and especially it's good to work with someone who's been that's gone the road before you. And I mean, that's one of the things that I loved about Hamid, is that I know he had gone the road before me, and he could tell me, you know, what the signposts were, and he could say, okay, so if you want to get to the next plateau, then, you know, put your hand here and put your foot there, right? And so, and another thing I wanted to say about what you were just saying about people having, you know, if you're not feeling enough or anything, but I always think that everybody experiences the thing in life that's really difficult is when the same pattern keeps coming up over and over and over. And keep sort of like, why am I keep bumping my head on the same wall? And that's how I have felt a lot in my life. And it's been hard to change behaviors. It's not so hard to change intentions or even conscious beliefs, but unconscious beliefs, unconscious self-images, those are things that are hard to change and can really be helped out by people who have been down the road before you and can help you to shine a light on those places that we're blind to.
Okay, so how can people break free from these unconscious beliefs and biases? Are there some technique? We just mentioned diamond approach, but are there some others?
Oh, there's so many others. And again, I'm not prepared for this question, so let me just take a moment to collect myself. I mean, I think that there's so many paths, and I can't even begin to answer that question. I think what's important for people is to identify, to come to be honest with themselves about how they're suffering. Yeah. and then to step up and say, this isn't necessary. And who can I find to help me to overcome the problems that I keep making for myself over and over? Taking responsibility is, a big step of it. Recognizing that your life is the way that it is because of what you think and what you see and what you believe and the choices that you make. It's all you. But sometimes it's not easy to become a new you because it's all structured into our brain waves and into our into those wiring of our brain. And so we need sometimes people need trauma work. Sometimes people need somatic work. Sometimes people need holding physically. Sometimes people need empathy. Sometimes people need to read. I mean, there's so many things, and I've done all of those, right?
That's great. That's great. I know you've done a lot of things. Well, I mean, the thing is, if you want to break free of this, this ego that thinks it's broken, that thinks that believes that it's small and that it's limited,
right? There
are a variety of ways, and I mean, one that I know we've discussed before is self-inquiry.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Do you want to tell them about it?
Sure.
Okay.
So we, let's see. So self-inquiry, I believe, I ran into it first with Ramana Maharishi and his path of self-inquiry as a path to enlightenment. And so that was my first introduction, and sort of learned at that time that if we really are committed to liberation, that we might want to ask ourselves one basic question, and we can do it right now. It's, who am I? And we might start out by going, I'm Ayn Cates Sullivan, and I'm a host here and talking to Peggy O'Neill. But then if we keep asking that question, you'll find that, well, yes, I might be playing that role, but that's not exactly who I am. And, getting back to your, what you said earlier, we might find that we're a diamond, or we might find that we're all sorts of different things.
Yeah, we might find that we're full of shit. So.
That could be,
I mean, that's I mean, when I say that, I mean, we might find out that we've been telling ourselves a lot of stuff that isn't really true. Like, I'm not enough, or my difference isn't okay, or it's not okay for me to really shine when I go to work, or it's not okay for me to speak up, or if I do such and such, so-and-so is going to reject me and then I'm going to die. That's the bullshit. So that's what I'm talking about there. And I'd like to add the diamond approach sort of form of inquiry is similar. And I never really, I didn't really experience Ramana Maharshi that directly when I was a younger person, but I did, I have been doing inquiry with the diamond approach for many, many years. And that, the thing I love about the diamond approach is that the practice is basically the same, whether you're the first day, whether you've been in it 10 years or you've been in it your whole adult life. That question that you ask yourself is, what's happening now?
Yeah, what's arising now? I really love it.
And
I really love this. Yes, this question, what's arising now? Because, and what I really love about the diamond approach version of self-inquiry, or just inquiry, is that you realize at some point that everything, you're going to include everything. You're going to include the light, the beauty, and you're going to include the shadow. There's not one emotion that you're going to experience that's bad or wrong. There's, that, and I remember having a conversation with someone about this at one point when I still had a sort of dualistic mindset, because diamond approach is much more non-dual. But when I thought, no, but God's not those things that are bad. And that was that one moment when I went, now hang on a second. If we're talking about unity consciousness, this means everything, that everything in this world, the chaos, the order, everything that's going on in the world is included right now. And all of this is the play that we're meant to be part of, the play of consciousness.
Exactly. And when you say what's arising now, or when I said what's happening now, it actually tills the soil for us to grow unity, because we are as we sit and we be. It's not just that we ask the question, then we stop and we look and we see and we sense and we go inside, and what's happening in our inner world, what's happening in the outer world, what's happening in my conscious mind, what's happening in my unconscious mind. And you begin to follow the thread of what's happening, and you go deeper and deeper. It does bring up those shadows, the difficulties, the rage, the terror, all the difficult experiences. And when you can sit and be with those, you cultivate the quality of acceptance of everything. And that, my friends, is what unity conscious is made of. It's an acceptance of everything. It's not just, okay, one day I'm going to snap my fingers and everything's going to be different. No, it's that we gradually learn to accept difficulties. And one of my recent experiences in Diamond Heart, I was having a private session, and I was upset about, because I'm a little person and I have all this stuff that's unfair, and I was having some, frustration and anger about it, and just letting myself feel it. And I was doing inquiry, and what my inner voice said, yes, but look at all these advantages that you have, and look at all of the doors, and look at how much it's quickened your process of becoming an awakened being. And so then I was able to sit, and I was actually having the awareness that I think this was like a real, like maybe even like a plateau of having more level of unity in my awareness. It was like, okay, there's the bad and there's the good in my life. There's the bad and the good in others' lives. There's the bad and the good that's in the outer world that we're all a part of, and we're dealing with and we're reeling with. And as I sat there with it, I just saw that this is it. This is life. It's both. It's the good stuff, it's the bad stuff, and we hold it all. And in that, we can show up and be objective, and we can see things for what they are, and we can know how to move forward.
That's incredibly beautiful. As you said that, the idea that we can accept everything. We can accept everything as it is right now without trying to change it. And we are fine as we are right now without trying to change anything. I mean, it's a powerful concept.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that concept creates unity consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And, yeah. And a type of, I mean, just now as you're speaking, I'm feeling, it feels to me like presence. It feels that I'm connected to all things right now. I'm speaking to you, and I have my body, and we're having an intellectual conversation, but I'm feeling this divine presence that's with us as, for me, what's arising now. It's really powerful.
Beautiful. Me
Thank
too.
you. Thank you. Well, goodness. Well, okay. So I always like to end the show, and I do really want you to come back on at some point and talk about superpowers some more.
Sure.
But what practice would you like to leave us with today that maybe can help us understand diversity?
Well, I had thought to leave with something completely different, but
Well, go ahead. What would you like to leave us with today?
Yes. What I'd like to leave you with today is the practice of silencing your critical voice.
Ooh, let's do that. That's powerful. I did hear, I think it was Byron Brown say one time that the main structure that keeps us from living in a state of self-realization is the inner critic.
Exactly.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
So let's just end it now.
Exactly. So I just want to give a little context and bridge from what we were just talking about.
Okay.
So we were just talking about that as we do inquiry, we till the soil for accepting all things in ourselves, all the rage, all the ugliness, all the stuff, all the sabotage mechanisms, all the mistakes we made. And we also we gain acceptance for the difficulties and troubles in the outer world. And as we only can do that if we don't go into judgment about ourselves, about others, or about the way the world is, the way consciousness is expressing itself on the planet. So what we want to do is there's 3 steps. First one is pay attention. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Second one is when you hear the voice, silence it by saying stop, shut up, go away. Something commanding, something short, not getting into a dialogue with it, but just stopping it. And then the third step is to sense your arms and legs, see what's happening in the moment, smell, feel, use your senses to come back into the beauty of the moment and move forward.
I love it. Can we do it?
Yeah, let's do it now.
Okay.
Okay, so I want everybody to think about what your critical voice says to you most often. And then feel how that voice makes you feel. Probably small, inadequate, scared, incapable. And then I want you to say to the voice, stop, go away. And then I want you to breathe in, open your eyes, look around you, see the colors, feel the chair, sense the miracle of your body, the miracle of your vision, your hearing, your breathing, everything. The miracle of this moment right now. And breathe in and let yourself expand into that beauty and know that that's who you are.
I love it. We could just write this down and just keep it with us all the time. Pay attention. Stop that inner critic. And just really be in the miracle of this moment now. That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Peggy.
And everybody remember to celebrate your uniqueness once you stop that critical voice, because it won't stop you from being the amazing you that you can be. So,
absolutely. Let's celebrate that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so if people want to come work with you, find out more about you, where do they go?
PeggySpeaks.com.
Excellent. Okay.
So, write me a note, and we can explore what might be a great way for me to help you or your group or your organization or whatever.
Okay, so you work mostly with organizations, right?
Yeah, but I do some personal work too. I work now with people who want to strengthen their spiritual connection.
Excellent. And you also have some amazing books. I don't know if we never really got into Little Squarehead, but we'll have to do that on another show.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for your wisdom, and thank you to everyone who has joined in as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. You're so beautiful. You're so lovely. You're so joyful. I feel honored to have been here with you, and thank you for giving me the space to express my true nature.
That's beautiful. Thank you, everyone. May your lives be filled with the grace of the divine. You can also find out more about me, Ayn Cates and what is my name now? I think it dissolved into the infinite self. But anyway, Ayn Cates Sullivan, and you can find out about my books or about Infinite Light Publishing by visiting AynCatesSullivan.com. So until we meet again, may wisdom reveal its secrets to you, one message at a time.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.